I never thought I'd be the guy writing one of these posts, but here I am, typing this with my stomach in knots. My name's Daniel, 37M, and I've been married to my wife, Lila, 34F, for just over 11 years. We have 2 kids, 8 and 5, and from the outside, people probably thought we were the picture of a happy, boringly stable family. We had the routines down: coffee together in the morning before work, family dinners at 6, Sunday brunch with her parents, occasional date nights when we could find a sitter. I used to think that kind of predictability was proof that we were strong, unshakable. Lila had always been affectionate. She had this way of kissing me goodbye every morning with a soft smile that felt like a promise, a reminder that we were in this together. And for years, I believed it. I thought our marriage was safe, wrapped in the warmth of trust and shared memories. But slowly, without me realizing it, the ground shifted. It started small, changes that I didn't want to admit meant anything. She suddenly became very protective of her phone. It wasn't just next to her anymore, it was practically glued to her hand. She'd text late at night, her face lit up by the glow of the screen, grinning at messages I couldn't see. Once, when I leaned over to ask what was so funny, she locked it instantly and gave me this annoyed look, like I had crossed a line. Then came the perfume. Not the everyday scent she used to wear, but something stronger, more alluring, and only when she claimed she was going out for book club or some vague girls' night. I'd catch the lingering scent on her coat when she got back, and it felt out of place in our house that smelled of kids' crayons, laundry, and home-cooked meals. I kept telling myself not to jump to conclusions. I didn't want to be that paranoid husband who assumes the worst. So I ignored the pit in my stomach, chalked it up to stress, routine, maybe even me imagining things. But the unease grew louder with every lie she slipped so smoothly past me. Deep down, I knew something was wrong. And eventually, I found out just how wrong I was. The night everything came crashing down wasn't some carefully planned investigation on my part. It was more like a storm breaking at the exact wrong, or right, time. Literally. It was a Thursday evening, and the weather outside was brutal, wind howling, rain pelting against the windows like fists. Lila grabbed her bag and kissed me on the cheek with that practiced smile, saying she was off to book club. She even rolled her eyes and joked about how boring it would be, like she always did. I forced a smile back, but inside, something just didn't add up. She was wearing heels. Not the sensible flats she usually wore to book club, but heels. Her makeup was flawless, her hair done in waves, and she smelled like that new perfume again, the one I never bought her. My gut twisted. It wasn't book club. I knew it. The storm rattled the windows after she left, and I just sat there, staring at the TV without hearing a word. My mind kept circling back to her smile, too perfect, too rehearsed. Finally, I couldn't take it. I grabbed my keys, threw on a jacket, and got in the car. Driving in that weather was a nightmare. Wipers going full speed, but the rain still blurred the windshield. My heart was pounding the whole time, half terrified of what I might find, half terrified of wrapping the car around a tree. She had mentioned once, offhand, that the cafe near the library was where her club sometimes met. That was the only lead I had, so I drove there. And there she was. Through the fogged-up glass, I saw her. Lila, my wife, sitting at a small table in the corner, lit by the warm glow of the cafe lights. But she wasn't surrounded by women with books. She wasn't holding a glass of wine and talking about novels. She was leaning in close to a man I didn't recognize. Dark hair, scruffy beard, hand resting on the table just inches from hers. And God, she was laughing in a way I hadn't heard in years. Light, free, like she was 20 again. Then I saw her hand brush against his. Not a casual gesture. Intentional. Lingering. They leaned closer, faces only inches apart. And right as thunder cracked so loud it shook the windows, their lips almost touched. My stomach dropped. She never noticed me standing in the shadows of the storm, watching my marriage collapse through a rain-smeared pane of glass. I drove home before she could leave, before she could see me. By the time she walked in, hair damp from the storm, she had her excuse ready: traffic was awful. She said it casually, almost annoyed, like I should be grateful she made it back in one piece. I just nodded. Because the truth had already settled inside me like a ghost I couldn't get rid of. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. I sat there on the couch, watching her peel off her coat, toss her heels in the corner, and pour herself a glass of wine like nothing had happened. She was humming. Humming. Meanwhile, I was barely holding it together. I wanted to explode, to scream, to demand answers, but I froze. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was fear. I told myself I'd wait, gather my thoughts, and hit her with the truth when I was ready. The chance came 2 days later. Saturday night. The kids were at her parents' house, and it was just us. She was curled up on the sofa scrolling through her phone, smirking at whatever was on her screen. My chest burned. I couldn't take it anymore. "Lila," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "How was book club the other night?" She didn't even look up. "Fine. Same boring crap as always." I swallowed hard. "That's interesting, because I drove past the cafe near the library. And you weren't with any book club." Her head snapped up. "Excuse me?" "I saw you," I said, my voice shaking now. "With him. Laughing, touching, almost kissing. Don't you dare stand there and tell me I imagined it." Her eyes went wide, but only for a second. Then she scoffed, rolled her eyes, and put her phone down with exaggerated slowness. "Oh my God, Daniel. Are you serious right now? You spied on me? Do you hear yourself? You sound insane." "I wasn't spying," I shot back. "I was trying to figure out why my wife lies about where she goes every week. And now I know." She crossed her arms, her voice dripping with venom. "Wow. 11 years of marriage, and this is what you think of me? That I'm sneaking around with some random guy?" "You were holding his hand, Lila." "So what?" she snapped. "It was friendly. Not everything is some scandalous affair just because your insecure little brain thinks so." Her words hit like knives. She was twisting it, turning it back on me, making me out to be the crazy one. And the worst part? She was calm. Controlled. Like she had practiced this speech. I stared at her, barely able to breathe. "Stop lying to me. Just stop. I deserve the truth." But instead of breaking down or apologizing, she laughed. A cold, humorless laugh that made my blood run cold. "You're pathetic, Daniel. Pathetic. You really think someone like me would settle for flirting in a cafe if I wanted more? Grow up." I didn't know whether to scream or collapse. I didn't sleep that night. Not a minute. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while she slept beside me, breathing steadily, like nothing had happened. I kept replaying her words in my head: pathetic, insecure, insane. She didn't even deny it properly. She twisted everything, made me feel like I was the problem, like my gut instincts and my own eyes were lying to me. The truth is, her reaction broke me more than seeing her in that cafe did. If she had confessed, if she had cried and begged forgiveness, at least I could have believed there was some shred of love left between us. But instead, she mocked me. She enjoyed watching me squirm. It was like the woman I thought I married was gone, replaced by someone cruel and calculating. All day Sunday, I went through the motions, picking up the kids, making lunch, smiling when I had to, but inside I was hollow. My chest ached constantly, like I was carrying a weight I couldn't set down. I kept thinking about all the years we spent together, the night we stayed up planning our first home, the way she cried when our son was born, the stupid little inside jokes we used to share. Were those memories even real, or were they just a mask she wore until she got bored? Every time I looked at her, I felt this sickening mix of anger and grief. Anger because she had betrayed me, grief because the person I loved wasn't really who I thought she was. And beneath it all, this gnawing shame, because somehow, even after everything, part of me still wanted her. That's the cruelest part about betrayal, it doesn't erase the love, it just poisons it. By the end of the day, I knew I couldn't keep living in limbo. Something had to give. Either she admitted the truth, or I'd have to find a way to move forward without her. By Monday morning, I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff. I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't just sit at the breakfast table, drink coffee, and act like everything was fine while she texted God knows who under the table. Something had to change. I started small. I pulled up our phone bill while she was in the shower. I'd never done that before, never had a reason to, but now. I felt like a detective in my own house. Sure enough, there it was, hours of late-night calls to a number I didn't recognize, endless streams of texts. Sometimes starting as soon as I went to bed. My stomach twisted. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't harmless. She was in deep. When she came out of the bathroom, humming and scrolling her phone like always, I asked, "Who's 555-8132? Her eyes flicked up, just for a second, before she smirked. "A coworker." "Why? You gonna interrogate everyone I talk to now?" That smug tone lit something in me I hadn't felt before, resolve. She wasn't going to tell me the truth, not willingly. But I could find it myself. So that day, at work, I quietly started planning. I called a buddy of mine, someone who had been through a divorce, and asked for the number of his lawyer. I googled private investigators, even though it made me feel like I was starring in some bad crime drama. And I started stashing away copies of bank statements and pay stubs, things I'd never thought twice about before. Was I terrified? Absolutely. But I wasn't just a husband anymore. I was a father. And if my marriage was falling apart, I had to protect myself, and my kids, before she left me shattered and broke. That night, she kissed me on the cheek before bed like nothing had changed. But I didn't kiss back. I just nodded, silently. Because in my head, the decision had already been made, I was done playing the fool. By Wednesday night, I couldn't keep my mouth shut any longer. Every time she smirked at her phone, every time she brushed past me like I was invisible, it felt like another knife in my back. I had the phone records printed out, highlighted, sitting in a folder in my desk. I wasn't going to be gaslit again. She came home late, again. Hair perfect, lipstick smeared just slightly, coat smelling like his cologne. She dropped her bag on the counter and said, "Don't start, Daniel. I had a long day." That was it. The spark that lit the powder keg. A long day at work? I asked. My voice cracked, but I didn't care. I pulled the phone records from behind me and slapped them on the counter. Or a long day with him? Her eyes widened, then narrowed instantly. You went through my phone bill. Are you out of your mind? Do you have any idea how controlling that looks? Controlling? I barked out a bitter laugh. You've been calling and texting this guy at all hours, sneaking out, lying to my face, and I'm the controlling one. She crossed her arms, shifting into full-blown attack mode. God, you're pathetic. You're jealous because someone actually wants to talk to me. Do you even realize how boring you've become? Same routine, same conversations, same everything. Maybe if you paid half as much attention to me as you do to your spreadsheets, I wouldn't need to talk to anyone else. Her words landed like a slap. My hands shook, but I forced myself to speak. So that's it? You're blaming me for your affair? She rolled her eyes, grabbing a glass from the cabinet like this was nothing more than a kitchen squabble. Affair? Please. You really love dramatizing things. It's a friendship. A harmless friendship. You've turned into some paranoid psycho over nothing. I slammed my fist against the counter so hard the glass in her hand rattled. Stop lying to me, Lila. I saw you. I saw you with him. She froze for a split second, then plastered on a smile so fake it made my skin crawl. If you want to throw away our marriage over your little fantasies, be my guest. But don't expect me to grovel. And with that, she walked out of the kitchen, glass of wine in hand, like she hadn't just detonated our entire life. I stood there, chest heaving, staring at the folder of proof on the counter. For the first time, I realized there was no version of this where she'd admit the truth. She'd rather burn me down with lies than face reality. That night was the closest I've ever come to completely unraveling. After she stormed upstairs, I just stood there in the kitchen, staring at those damn phone records until my vision blurred. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My chest felt tight, like someone was sitting on it. I wanted to scream, to smash something, to drive until the gas tank was empty and never come back. Instead, I poured myself a whiskey and sat alone in the dark, listening to the storm outside. Every creak of the house sounded louder, like the walls themselves were mocking me. Around midnight, I went upstairs. She was already asleep, or pretending to be. She had her back to me, phone still glowing faintly under her pillow. The nerve. After everything, she still couldn't put it down. That image is seared into me, my wife, curled up with her phone like it was her lover, while I stood in the doorway feeling like a ghost in my own marriage. That's when the breaking point hit. Not just anger, not just sadness, something worse. Numbness. Like I had slipped out of my own skin and was just watching some poor bastard's life collapse in slow motion. I realized that no matter how much proof I had, no matter how much I begged, she was never going to tell the truth. She was too deep in her lies, too comfortable blaming me for everything. And the worst part? I felt powerless. I had spent over a decade building a life with this woman, kids, home, memories, and now it all felt like sand slipping through my fingers. I sat on the edge of the bed that night, staring at her back, and I thought, is this it? Is this really how it ends? For the first time, divorce wasn't some distant, abstract word. It was right there in front of me, staring me in the face. The next morning, something inside me snapped into place. I woke up exhausted, hollowed out, but with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. If she wasn't going to give me the truth, I'd take it myself. While she was in the shower, I grabbed her phone. My hands were sweating so bad I almost dropped it, but I finally guessed the passcode, our daughter's birthday. I wish I could say I was surprised, but I wasn't. She had whole message threads with him, hidden under a fake contact name, Laura, book club. Clever. Almost clever enough to fool me forever. I scrolled, and my stomach turned. Messages that started innocent months ago, little jokes, late-night chats, had spiraled into flirty banter, innuendos, and finally full-blown sexting. The timestamps told the story clear as day. While I was lying next to her, she was texting him under the covers. While I was reading bedtime stories to our kids, she was sending him selfies in the bathroom mirror. My hands shook so badly I could barely breathe. I didn't confront her right then. Instead, I snapped photos of everything, every message, every timestamp, and emailed them to myself. I forwarded them to a folder I labeled insurance. I felt like a spy, but this time, the paranoia was gone. It was reality. At work, I called the lawyer my buddy recommended. We set up a consultation. I started asking questions about custody, finances, the house. The words tasted bitter, but for the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of control again. That evening, I didn't say a word to her. I just watched. Watched her laugh at her phone. Watched her kiss me half-heartedly before bed. Watched her roll over with her back to me, glowing screen hidden under the sheets. She thought I was still blind. But now, I was wide awake. I couldn't hold it in anymore. By Friday night, the weight of the screenshots in my inbox felt like dynamite in my pocket, and I was done letting her treat me like the crazy one. The kids were at a sleepover, and it was just us, no distractions, no excuses. She was pouring herself a glass of wine when I walked in with my laptop under my arm. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might give out. "Lila," I said, voice flat. "We need to talk." She rolled her eyes instantly. "What now, Daniel? Another lecture about how I don't smile enough at you? Or how I text too much?" I didn't answer. I set the laptop on the counter, opened the folder, and spun the screen toward her. Dozens of screenshots lit up the display. Her face. Her words. Her little, harmless friendship, laid bare in black and white. For a split second, she froze. Her eyes widened, lips parted. But then, like flipping a switch, she sneered. "Wow. You actually went through my phone. You're unbelievable." "No, you're unbelievable," I snapped. "All this time you've been lying to my face, making me feel insane, calling me pathetic, when the truth was right here. You're having an affair, Lila. Stop calling it anything else." She slammed her glass down so hard wine splashed across the counter. "So what if I am?" she shouted, her voice sharp and venomous. "Maybe if you weren't such a boring, lifeless husband, I wouldn't have to look somewhere else for excitement." The words gutted me, but at the same time, I felt a strange kind of release. Finally, the mask was off. "You could have just told me you weren't happy," I said quietly. "Instead, you chose to humiliate me. To destroy us." Her face twisted with something ugly. "Don't play the victim, Daniel. You knew this marriage was dead years ago. You just didn't have the guts to admit it." My hands clenched into fists. Maybe I didn't. But at least I wasn't out screwing around while pretending everything was fine. For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. She just stood there, glaring, breathing hard. And in that silence, I realized it was over. Not the fight. The marriage. After that night, something in me went quiet. I didn't yell anymore. I didn't beg or demand explanations. I just shut down. The fight had drained me, but it had also given me clarity. For weeks, I'd been hanging on to scraps, hoping she'd admit the truth, hoping she'd show even a flicker of remorse. But now I knew, she wasn't sorry. She never would be. The next morning, I woke up before her. I brewed my coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at the papers I'd already started collecting: bank statements, pay stubs, screenshots, the lawyer's number written on a sticky note. It was all there, waiting. And for the first time, I didn't hesitate. I called the lawyer. I scheduled the consultation. I told him I was ready to move forward. My voice barely shook. That day, I also opened a new bank account. Quietly, carefully. I shifted some money over, not enough to raise her suspicion yet, but enough to start building my own safety net. I spoke to a friend about a possible rental if I needed to move fast. And I started journaling, writing down every lie she told, every excuse, every time she slipped away from the house for errands that lasted 4 hours. My lawyer said documentation would matter, so I documented. When I got home, she acted like nothing had happened. Kissed me on the cheek, asked if I wanted takeout. And I smiled back. Not because I believed her. Not because I forgave her. But because now I had a plan. I wasn't trapped anymore. She thought she'd broken me, that she'd won by twisting the story and calling me pathetic. But what she didn't realize was that I wasn't playing her game anymore. I wasn't fighting for her love or begging for the truth. I was fighting for myself, and for my kids. The marriage was over. Now it was about survival. It's been a few weeks since that last confrontation, and I've finally started to breathe again. The papers are in motion, the lawyer is handling the mess, and I'm focusing on what really matters, my kids and my own sanity. I won't lie, some days still crush me. I'll be driving and suddenly remember the way she used to laugh with me, and it feels like a knife. Then I remember her laughing like that with him, and the knife twists. The betrayal doesn't just go away. It lingers. But it doesn't control me anymore. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: people who lie like that, people who gaslight you, belittle you, and make you feel insane, aren't worth saving. I spent too long trying to hold together a marriage that she had already burned to the ground. The hardest part wasn't letting her go, it was letting go of the version of her I thought was real. To anyone reading this who feels that same gnawing gut instinct, trust it. Don't let anyone tell you you're paranoid. Don't let their lies drown out what your eyes and heart already know. Gather proof. Protect yourself. And when the mask finally slips, don't waste your time waiting for apologies that will never come. I thought my life ended the night I saw her in that cafe. But the truth? My life started over that night. And this time, it's mine.